Welcome to the Warning Track Power Hour. I'm Andrew Scaff. He's Mike Werman. Today we're going to get to our part three and part four, of our NFL quarterback series, getting ready for the 2023 NFL season. We'll cover the AFC quarterbacks today, a little later in the show. We'll also talk about the preseason, also leading up to the 2023 NFL season. But we'll begin today's episode with the continuing saga of the terrible Kansas City Royals. But to avoid actually talking about them right away, we will first discuss the release of the new plans for the downtown or downtown adjacent Kansas City Royals stadium coming in theoretically 2028. Some new information available to us today. You've had a chance to take a look at the site renderings. What do you think of the two sites, and do you have a preference for the two?
Well, I guess I would prefer ideally downtown, since why would you move it otherwise? Why can't you just if you're gonna do North Kansas City, why can't you just build stuff around the current stadium that makes it look sort of like what you could build in North Kansas City? I guess it might not be the same, but if you want to make it downtown, put it in downtown. But I guess the one drawback for the location on the eastern side of downtown, they call the East Village, is that when we were talking about this before we went on air, was that the stadium, the ballpark faces southeast as they rendered it. And if you're facing southeast from the eastern side of downtown, you can see none of downtown.
Not
And
all of it is behind you, yes.
yeah, and
If you're in the
so
stands.
why, partly the reason you want a downtown stadium is because it has a cool skyline you can look at, and this is what they have in Pittsburgh, it's what they have in St. Louis, it's what they have in most of these places that have downtown stadiums or adjacent stadiums. You can see the skyscrapers, and the only, in the drawings that the renderings, the only thing you could see in the East Village outfield background was buildings that the Royals built as part of the downtown village, ballpark village,
The entertainment district that
yeah, and
would be
that was
adjacent to
kind
the
of
park.
lame, I thought, because partly what's lame, I guess people think's lame about Kauffman Stadium is just you have a view of the highway and of the old Adams Mark Hotel, or maybe it's Adams Mark again. I don't know what it is. It switches names all the time. Or the Denny's that used to be up there. There's not much to look at other than the roads. But so the North Kansas City venue, at least you can see downtown from the renderings. But I'm sure I'll be excited when the stadium is actually built. But I guess I don't see a huge advantage over the current location. I guess you could say, well, downtown is good, but it seems like you only get with the current arrangement of the way the stadium would have to be, you get the crowdedness of downtown, but you don't get the view and the kind of the bang for the downtown view that you would want. So,
well, just the sensation that you are downtown, not just in a stadium, right?
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I guess walking around the concourses are probably going to be glass, so you can see downtown from while you're not watching the game, while you're waiting in line to get a beer or a hot dog or something. But I don't know. It's not as when I saw that, I was like, where's downtown? You can't see it. That was the big problem I had with it, and I just didn't really think of the way you had to orient a baseball field, because you don't really need to do something like that for a football stadium, because you go two directions in football. Baseball, the batters are facing one way, and you don't want them to, I guess, face into the sun, which is why they don't face, if they could turn the park and have it face slightly west, they would be able to see a much better view.
Yeah, we took a look at aerial views of most of the parks, I think, just before we went on tonight to record this episode. And we found out that, almost all the parks faced either east, southeast, or northeast.
Yeah,
like almost everything. There were a couple
Cleveland
that
was
were
almost
relatively
due
north.
north,
I think
I
San
think.
Diego was straight north.
And so if you, but facing it due north, maybe some people in the right field on the right field side could see some of downtown, but you couldn't see that much of it. Um,
Yeah.
and so it's a, it's not the ideal
Well, I think
vista in the
part
park.
of it's for the crowd, how much sun the crowd's going to be getting too. And I know most of the parks have some kind of like shield for the elements over the bulk of the park, but there's still a lot of people that are out in the elements no matter what. And maybe it's better if you're having some covering over the top of the west side, so as the sun sets it blocks more of the sun from
Yeah.
people that are down below it. But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I think that the renderings look pretty nice. The parks look nice, but I don't know if I'm like over enthusiastic about any of the design that I've seen, at least in
Yeah,
here.
I thought the North Kansas City Ballpark Village looked kind of cool, like and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
but I don't.
At
I
least has the downtown as the
You can see
view.
downtown, and I guess you can't see downtown from the current stadium, but you could build a sort of village that looks sort of like that. I think still, it's just a giant parking lot now. Like you could turn part of the parking lot into a garage or something like that, and have space for other things. I don't. It's
Hmm.
I don't. They just don't have it that way. I don't know why.
Yeah. Well, I think they have to move it out of where it is, and they're going to have more attendance at basically every game if they have it downtown or near downtown, just because it's closer to the population center, and
Yeah, it's closer to the
um,
Kansas
they're not
side.
and they're not going to build anything up around where the park is now. They're just not. They've had 40 years,
They've had 50 years
years.
to
They've
do it.
never done anything there, so
Yeah. They
it's not
built, they,
happening.
you know,
Whatever anybody thought might happen around there, it's not happening.
we have a gas station across the street, and yeah, and then there's that kind of dumpy stuff that's that on the Blue River Parkway kind of area. Like there's nothing, yeah, there's nothing there right now. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I guess that's okay for football. And I guess for baseball, since you think, well, it's gonna be used 81 nights, days a year, that's almost 1/4 of the year. So like that's pretty common usage. And I guess if you say, well, the Sprint Center is going to be used a lot otherwise too, it's like there's going to be a lot of stuff going on downtown most nights,
Hmm.
I think. So
It looked like there was another little tidbit in the release from today, was that they looked like there was going to be like a 4,000 seat um another like entertainment
music venue or
area.
to entertainment venue, like in the North Kansas City development, because I think they have like 87 acres. They only have like 27 acres in downtown. So like they have a lot more
Village.
space to work with in the North Kansas City Village, in Crown Village or whatever they were going to call it.
Hmm.
And yeah, so I guess they're, because I guess they need to sort of build up a power and light district there, because they wouldn't necessarily need that because they have the power and light. It's not too far from what the downtown stadium would be, which has other entertainment stuff. But the Royals wouldn't own that part, so like they wouldn't be able to make money off of it the same way they would in North Kansas City.
The Royals themselves won't own it, but I guess what it sounded like there was going to be something like $1 billion of private input into this project. It was supposed to be a $2 billion project, so they're looking at a halvesies.
Yeah, I thought the Royals were going to
Of
put
it.
in half, and then
Yeah.
um, I guess to maybe continue whatever sales tax that Jackson County or the bi-state sales tax gets or whatever.
Mm.
But
But
and
if
I,
they go to the North Kansas City site, that's a different county, so they'd have to have a new agreement with Clay County.
and the lease doesn't end until 2031, as we've learned. So trying to have the new stadium up by 2028 will cause problems, especially if they try to move it to Clay County. At least if it's
Mhm.
downtown, it's still Jackson County. So maybe they could just,
But 2028, opening day 2028, that means they're gonna have to start this project in like 2 years.
yeah, it's
Like,
only 4 seasons
yeah.
away. because we're almost done with 2023 season, and
That's not a lot of time to, get agreements with all of the properties that have to be consumed in the construction of something like this. So this is a quite an undertaking that they're going about, and I'm not sure if they're prepared for all of this. It doesn't sound like they've done a lot of their homework with the with at least with the politics side of things with the counties.
yeah,
Uh,
you have to make sure you get it ready on time. There was did you read the article there's articles that I saw online about Vanderbilt building renovating its football stadium,
hmm.
and how its football stadium is not going to be ready for the season, which starts in like 2 weeks. And what are you going to do? Like,
Was their old park taken down in the is it the same site? Is that part of the problem there, or is it?
I think they were adding seats to um the
Oh, it was
current
like a renovation. It wasn't a
stadium.
full
Yeah, they're
rebuild.
renovating it. Now they call it First Bank Stadium.
Hmm.
And I think they were adding seats or something like that. And they are it's still like really under construction, apparently.
Hmm.
Um, and there's yeah, I just saw, I think I saw that yesterday or the day before, how um it's gonna, yeah, it's,
They may have
yeah,
to play a home game in another park.
yeah, it's 11 days from its opener, and the football stadium is still, they're gonna play in it despite despite not finishing. It says Vanderbilt will play the 2023 college football stadium on a field directly adjacent to a construction site. Its renovation is nowhere near complete. um
Wow.
yeah, so we don't
Well,
want that to happen, I guess, with the Royals,
yes, that's yeah.
especially if they tore down the old Kauffman Stadium because they need to build a new Chiefs stadium, and then there's no place for the Royals to play. While if the stadium is delayed, will they play in?
Well, so if they play the 2027 season, they'd have to leave it up until the end of that season, I guess. So they at that time they should know that the other park would be ready to go
Yeah,
like 6 months later.
yeah,
They should be mostly completed with it, I would hope.
yeah. I guess you'd hope so. Then, but the Chiefs would be, maybe they want to build their new. They probably want to build their new Arrowhead Stadium on the site of
the current
Kauffman,
was, yeah.
so they can keep their old one too. So
So you think it'd be like as soon as they turn the lights out for the season finale in 2027 that they're like detonating
yeah,
the
unfortunately, I
park.
think that's what's going to happen. I don't like, yeah, I don't like the idea of tearing down old buildings just to build new ones because they're slightly nicer,
Yeah.
then often turn out not to be nicer. And so it's just, as a historian type of in person, I like older things more than newer things. And I think we've torn down a lot of old buildings in the United States, unfortunately, and to build kind of new crap. And I don't know if the new stadium is going to be as good as the old stadium.
Hmm.
And
But realistically, what does it matter if the team's playing as they have been playing? I guess in the since our last episode, the team is 1-5. They're lost their most recent game to the series opener against the MLB's worst team, Oakland A's, and are losing tonight 5-4 in the bottom of the seventh. Are you worried that the Royals are going to get swept by the worst team in baseball?
well, they almost got swept the first time they played the A's. They lost the first two and then managed to win the third.
Hmm.
Here, at least, the Royals are down
5-4.
5-4, and they were down worse. But then Greinke came in, so he's back and he's pitched right so far 3 2/3 shutout innings. So that's a
Hmm.
good sign, and
That's
he
a good
has,
sign, yeah.
and so maybe that's a good, at least something that's good. I like having Greinke. Unfortunately, I don't think Zach Greinke will be around in 2028 uh, for the new stadium.
You don't know that.
Yeah, we don't know that, but I think, how old is Zach right now?
Oh, he's got to be
He's
nearing 40.
39. Yeah, he will be, he's almost 40. He'll be 40 in October. So he will be 44 when this new stadium opens, right? Yeah,
Hmm.
he'll turn 45 at the end of the
Yes.
2028 season. So I don't think, unless he develops a knuckleball or something like that, which he might, uh,
Yeah.
pitching like Charlie Huff or one of those other old timey knuckleball, one of the Necros or something like that, who pitched Gaylord Perry when they pitched into
Yeah.
like age 48 or whatever. But
He does have an ephus pitch that he throws out there every once in a while, so
yeah,
it's not it's not that far off.
yeah,
It
Gaylord
sounds like it's
Perry turned 45 when he played for the Royals in his last season in 1983.
pretty good.
Perry, you might remember, the most famous thing he did for the Royals was actually grab George Brett's pine tar bat and try to abscond with it,
Oh,
not be measured or used as evidence against him. But I think they found it and they brought it back. But that was what Gaylord Perry did for the Royals. Basically, he was on that '83 Royals team, and then didn't do a whole lot else, I think. But I'm going to look him up real quick on Baseball Reference. But George, the Royals had a lot of those kind of end of Hall of Fame careers.
hmm.
So he was 4-4 for the Royals, 4.27 ERA, started 14 games, pitched 84 in a third inning.
That's not a
So
bad
not too bad.
twilight season, I guess, right?
No, he had been released by Seattle earlier in that year
Hmm.
because he didn't have a very good start. He was only 3-10, 4.94 ERA. So he did better when he came to the Royals.
Hmm.
And I think, unfortunately, he did not get to play for a Royals playoff team.
Hmm.
He
Yeah,
did win he did
they would
win
have done
two
all
Cy
right that
Young
year.
Awards. I'm sorry.
They would have done all right that season, though. That was
83, 84
between
they
their
went to
two World
the playoffs.
Series teams.
84 they went to the playoffs. I think 83 was when they had kind of their last hurrah with some of their old guys from like
Hmm.
70s and 80s, and then they decided, well, we're going to dump these pitchers and we're going to go with the youth movement in 84, and that's what brought them around, I think.
When they drafted Saberhagen that next year, I guess.
Yeah, Saberhagen started in 84, started playing in 84. Yeah, the pitching staff, they had some people who kind of continued on, but it was,
Oh yeah, he wasn't drafted that year. No, he came up to the majors.
they still had Quisenberry, but like it was still like Larry Gura and Paul Splittorff and Dennis Leonard, those guys that were kind of
Hmm.
done by 85. I guess Leonard came back in 86. He was out at 85, but like he wasn't quite the same. Vita
Yeah.
was on they brought in, I guess it was Danny Jackson's first year, so he was, and Bud Black was there. So like there were a couple of those guys that would stick around, but a lot of them were gone by
The
85.
signaling the changing of the guard.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know the this last week's Royals had a very bizarre lineup submitted that I thought was interesting that I would mention to you. See what you think of this.
Okay.
How often do you think it happens where the three outfielders in the game are hitting in the bottom third of the lineup? That has to be really rare, does it not?
Two outfielders statting 7, 8, 9.
Yeah,
That would be because you would usually, traditionally, you put some of your power guys or your speed guys in the outfield.
maybe not the best defensive players, but usually the bigger bats.
Yeah, or like
In the corner outfield, one of the corner outfield
one of
spots.
the corner outfielders. The center fielder is often the leadoff hitter.
Yes.
So all, like, I guess so, maybe, that I don't know I can't really think of a time that would happen. That's unusual.
Yeah.
Has it happened before with the Royals? Did you?
That's the first time I've ever seen it in ever, but I don't have a way to analyze all of the lineups that have been made to see if there was if that is how rare of an occurrence it is. It has to be rare though. Like, traditionally the center fielder is the fastest guy, would also be your leadoff hitter. So And usually one of the corner outfield spots is a power hitter. So like it would be very odd to have your outfield having the lightest bats.
Yeah, because
Especially all three of the lightest bats. That is very, very, very strange.
yeah, you really want your better hitters hitting up higher in the order because you think they'll have more at bats potentially in the game. So you want.
And they also likely had three catchers in the lineup, which is what they've done very commonly this season, which I find completely asinine. But
Well, Firmina's been playing pretty well.
so
They
they've seemed to like need to find a spot for him.
Melendez
And
probably should go to AAA.
well, he should have gone to AAA when they decided he was going to be an outfielder. And so most of this season should not have happened the way it happened. Uh, there is no reason for us to have watched him learn to play the outfield at the major league level, especially when
Yeah.
he's not hitting well either. So,
Like they sent Alex Gordon down, I think, to learn outfield. I think they sent Martin down to learn outfield
yeah,
before that. So I think
there's
that's
precedent for it even
traditionally.
within the team. Yes, very weird. Um, yeah, I don't. It's one of the stranger teams that I've seen. Yeah, so it was a 3 catcher lineup and a 7, 8, 9 outfielders.
Yeah, because Salvi's
On
been
the
playing first most of
that
the
was
time.
the Saturday game against the Cubs.
And it's not even one of those catchers as DH either. 3 catchers in the field rather
Yes.
like you'll have a catcher playing designated hitter or something like
Oh,
that.
actually, Melendez DH that game,
Oh, he did DH that game. Okay.
and he led off, which I thought was very stupid. Also, was what my dad and I were talking about this when it when we looked at the lineup before the game started. Is like, what kind of ridiculous thing did they come up with today? I pulled it up before the game started, and I saw this. I was like, what is happening here? It's like, and then so Dad asked me what I thought Melendez was going to do for the day. I told him 0 for 4, 2 strikeouts, 2 groundouts to the right side. First 4 at bats, strikeout, strikeout, ground out to first. And this one at bat he struck out though. It's like, oh, it was so close to the prediction of the futility that I expected. He was actually
Yeah, I'm looking at the
more
lineup right now. So
futile.
there's Melendez, DH, Witt, shortstop, Massey batting third at second, which isn't good either.
Yeah.
Salvador Perez, cleanup, first base, Freddie Fermin, catcher, fifth, Matt Duffy, third, Samad Taylor, Drew Waters, Dairon Blanco are 7, 8, 9.
Ridiculous lineup. Like the game was lost when the lineup card was turned in.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But this has been a common occurrence that like it's not very hard to tell which games are losses just by looking at the lineup card, and this is fully a manager's issue. This is
yeah, because Garcia wasn't in the game.
he'd
Samad
been
Taylor.
having some issues with like a rib injury.
Mhm. Yeah, Samad Taylor also batted eighth. He batted eighth on Monday night, but he was playing second base that night. So it was Waters, right field, Samad Taylor, Kyle Isbell, who were 3 potential outfielders, but they weren't all playing the 3 outfield positions that night.
Yes.
And Melendez was playing left. He batted fifth on Monday when they lost to the A's. So
Isbell's a very strange case too, because like they've been using him in the 9 spot. They've moved him up in the lineup a few times, and he's done very well when they've moved him up. And he, is his reward for doing well and being moved up is to be, given days off or moved back down in the lineup the next opportunity. It's I would find maddening if it were presumably a reward based system with a young team, and I don't see that there is reward being given to young players here in the way that the lineups have been set. And especially in the bullpen then too. So like the team's bullpen is not very good. And today is the second day in a row they've decided to do an entirely bullpen driven game, which is completely asinine as a concept. I mean, this is an evaluation season. Why are there not more starting pitchers to evaluate? Why are you not bringing guys that could be starters into the starting position role? They're trying to use openers and stuff like this. Is like totally stupid. There's no reason for it.
I don't have the
It
answer.
makes no sense. The team says that they're being more data driven. They went out and hired a data driven manager, and we're seeing just complete garbage from decision making. This is
Well, maybe it's
ridiculous.
completely data driven and no stuff. There's no like human sense, I guess. And so we'll just write like maybe the data says we'll just start with our bullpen and then finish with
There was
starter.
nothing data wise that would give that impression. So if someone is using it, saying that this is a data based approach, they are lying to you, or they don't know how to use data, because there's nothing out there anywhere that says that that would be a good idea.
So you don't think it was a good idea to start on Hell Zerpa tonight and
Not if
uh,
Grinky's back.
and have
2 weeks
Grinky?
ago, when Zerpa finally made his way back up, they put him in the bullpen, which he'd only been a starter before, and I didn't understand that either. So like, if you're going to use him as a starter, use him as a starter. Why transition him back and forth between the two positions? If you want him to be a starter, try him out as a starter. If he succeeds, great. If he doesn't, then move him to the bullpen.
Yeah,
See how he does there.
maybe it's part
And
of that
then make a decision. If
system.
he's not going to do well there, then get rid of him. But like, this is, you don't learn anything from any of this. We're not finding out any new things about any of these players. It's just a waste of time. Because
Yeah.
I don't even think we've actually learned anything about anybody this year.
We've learned that Bobby Witt Jr. is going to be a great player and
He's
has
one of the
already maybe a
only
great
people that
player.
they have left alone. They put him in the two spot most of the year, and he has stayed there. You can
Michael
actually
Garcia.
glean some information from that. Everything else has just been a waste of time.
Michael Garcia has proved that he's pretty good. For me, maybe some of the hitters have shown themselves, I guess, even if they are kind of jerked around the lineup. But yeah, it's been a weird season, and I don't and maybe that's why they're thinking, well, let's talk more and more about the new stadium because we want to draw attention away
They've done
from.
this. They've made this season bad because of how they have managed the team. We should be learning more about these players, and we're not. This is a management problem. This is not a player problem. This is a management problem.
Well, should we transition to talking about a team that seems to be very well managed? Or
In just a minute, I got one baseball related trivia question for you, though,
okay,
before we move on. I'll list up four different people. I want you to tell me what these players have in common with each other. Okay.
we've never been in my kitchen.
This
I'll
is a complete. I
take a
guess
play with.
that would also be technically. Walter Johnson, Steve Busby, Mike Warren, and Michael Lorenzen. What do these four players have in common?
um, they're all pitchers.
They are all Major League Baseball pitchers. That is one of the things that they have in common.
Um, I like well, Steve Busby played the Royals. Walter Johnson probably died before the Royals became a team.
Yes.
Um, um, they no, I think Busby was left-handed. Maybe they're all right-handed or
Hmm.
left-handed. They all.
So Lorenzen, just if you didn't hear, just recently threw a no hitter.
Oh, okay. Well, Steve Busby has thrown no hitters. So have they thrown at least two no hitters? Is that what it is?
No, they've all thrown. They have all four thrown no hitters. But here's the weird thing: they all went to the same high school. And then even stranger is they are the only four pitchers that have ever made it to the majors from that high school.
I'm looking at Fullerton Union High School
Yeah,
in
there
Fullerton,
are other
California.
hitters I think that made it from that high. This fact just popped up the other day. I just thought it was kind of funny anyway. It's like that is the complete set of major league players, major league pitchers that came from that high school, and they've all four thrown no hitters in the major league level.
Wow.
And they were in like vastly different times. Walter Johnson's no hitter was in 1920. Busby threw one in 73 and 74. Mike Warren threw one in 1983, and Michael Lorenzen was just like 2 weeks ago
Yeah.
for Philly.
Well, Walter Johnson's one of the all-time greats, and Lorenzen and Busby were both pretty good. Busby maybe could have been really, really good had he not gotten hurt. But Mike Warren, I'm looking at him right now, was not a good pitcher career wise. I guess he only had,
Like 20 something starts, 27 starts or
yeah, he
something.
threw a no hitter in one of them though, huh? I think it was
Yeah.
he's only in the league from 83 to 85,
Yeah.
but he threw a no hitter.
From the same high school though, Mike, isn't that?
Well, we did
Quite
talk
interesting.
about modern day high school last week when we talked about the three Heisman Trophy winners who had
Yeah.
gone to that high school, and
We'll see. I was in California, wasn't
it
it?
was in California. Yeah, and Bryce Young was one of them, and the Matt Leinart and uh, Huarte, and also, but they've all been busts because Tom Marinovich was school, and Matt Barkley, who we'll mention later today,
Yeah.
uh, was so like yeah that was a they were all the quarterbacks from that school. Some of the quarterbacks we'll talk about later in our preview were also from these same schools as one another, and it's kind of interesting to see how that works. But I have a interesting. We'll talk about that later. I have a couple of interesting tidbits related to locations and schools, but the you so you, how about the Chiefs? How do you think they looked pretty good in their second preseason game? They had a few jitters early on the offense when Mahomes was there. There were some drop passes, but then once things started going, they steamrolled the Arizona Cardinals 38-10, and all four quarterbacks had well over 100 passer ratings. Mahomes was actually the lowest, I think, at 108 or something like that.
105, something. Yeah, somewhere in that
Yeah,
area. Yeah.
it was. So do you think the Chiefs are are rounding into form already? Do you think maybe the biggest story was the quarterback play, where we have Shane Buechele possibly challenging Blaine Gabbert as quarterback number 2? We'll talk about that more when we talk about the Chiefs. But do you think any of these young guys on the Chiefs, or maybe old guys, played their way into more potential playing time this past week?
So yeah, Bouchel actually took the second string snaps after Mahomes left the game. So I thought that was interesting, at least anyway, to see that they did sort of switch the positions anyway for at least for the preseason game, which doesn't really necessarily mean anything more than let's just see what he does sort of scenario. But yes, the team does seem like they've done a very good job with personnel. The offensive line looks great. If four quarterbacks have 100+ rating for the game. They seem to have been pretty solid at protecting the quarterbacks. None of them were sacked in the game.
Are the Cardinals just really, really bad though?
It's possible, but usually there'd be some pressure though, even if the team's not great.
Yeah, third string, fourth string, something, there's
Yeah,
going to be something, but yeah, there wasn't much.
the receiving crew all look pretty good. It's 17 different receivers caught at least one pass.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem though is that Chris Jones remains not in camp and holding out. Do you see an end to that, or is that just going to last until the beginning of the season, or is it going to go into the season, do you think?
You'd think that it would have to end pretty soon. I haven't even heard about any progress made on the contract though. I haven't. I heard that this last week the Chiefs. I don't know if they actually announced it, but it came out that they had made a large, what they claimed to be a large offer that has so far been not accepted, at least anyway. But we don't know what those numbers were, if they're close or if they're talking, or we don't really know anything, do we? Have you heard any more information?
No, I just heard information today, Tuesday, that maybe he would hold out into the season if
Into the
possible.
season.
So that's all I've heard. That's so it's none of the news has been good.
Not encouraging anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. Sometimes though that sort of posturing doesn't necessarily mean that they're far from a deal. Maybe it's going to end soon. Who knows? But
Yeah.
sometimes, I guess, sometimes where there's smoke, there's fire too. So it's hard to say. I guess the Chiefs are not looking for a trade partner right now. That wouldn't help them for this season. So they really just need, even if they don't want to offer Jones a long-term contract, they just need him to play this season, and maybe Jones can play well enough that he'll get if he's not going to get 30 plus million a year from the Chiefs, maybe if he plays well, he can get that much money from another team.
The Chiefs or someone else anyway.
Yeah.
Either one.
Yeah.
But I don't understand the how he's got to have some number in mind as to how far he's willing to go for this season, how much money he's going to sacrifice, because he's getting fined like $50K per day by not being in camp. And now he's up, I think he's missed workout bonus that he would have gotten. It was about $500,000, so he's either at or past the $2 million mark, and as to how much money is left on the table for this season. He's got to have some number in mind about how much he's willing to sacrifice. I would think.
Yeah, and you would think that it's not quite like the Lamar Jackson situation, where Jackson famously did not have an agent for at least most of it. Jones does presumably have someone who is advising him and doing most of the negotiation. I don't know who his agent is. Jason Katz from Katz Brothers Sports, it says, according to Spot Track. But yeah, I don't. It seems like everything is going very, very well for the Chiefs right now, except that one big problem. And is that going to derail another potential Super Bowl season if Jones, like, is he going to pull a Le'Veon Bell and just not play and go for his cut? But so I don't really know what's going to happen.
I think a lot of the times those like sitting out for a year doesn't really endear themselves to the other teams in the league either, because if they're willing to not play for a contract that they sign, then it's not usually a good indicator as to how loyal they're going to be to the team as they go on they do.
Yeah, because like there was an issue, like earlier in the summer they were thinking, well, maybe Jones is just waiting for the other contracts for Quinn Williams and some of the other big name defensive tackles to get signed, and those have been signed. So we know, like, well, he probably wants more than 25 million, and the Chiefs probably aren't going to offer 30 million. So it's somewhere in that range, which is a lot of money. $5 million is a lot of money for everybody else, especially if you're going to play 3 or 4 years. That's 20 million, but that's on top of a lot of money already. So it's hard to.
Yeah. And I mean, we just don't know what they're. Yeah, maybe they're just talking about the number of years, or maybe there's a lot more to it though too. We don't. Yeah, we don't know how big this gap is, I guess, right? The Royals have now lost game 2 to the A's. It is 5-4 final. Just so you know.
Yeah, they lost 5-4, not surprisingly. But I guess Greinke pitched well in his comeback.
Sure.
If he had been the starter, right? That would have been.
Seems like that would have been a better thing to do. If you knew Greinke was going to be back, then I don't know why he wasn't starting the game. That doesn't seem to make much sense.
Maybe he was late. We got through somebody out there.
Could be. I doubt that. Oh,
that Bay Area traffic can be a nightmare.
I forgot to mention that yesterday the Royals lost on a walk-off from a player that they released after last year. Did you notice that? The Brett Rooker hit a 2-run home.
Revenge for Brett Rooker.
Anyway, sorry. Let's stop talking about the Royals.
Well, so
the Chiefs. Anything else about the Chiefs game? What about the running backs? Does anybody look interesting, or are they? Well, they really necessary so much in the last game.
Yeah, one of the things that maybe people thought. So Pacheco has been recovering from his offseason surgery, hasn't been really doing much. So it looks like he's going to play in the last preseason game. But there's also Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who's trying to kind of reestablish himself as a high quality running back, and that's not going terribly well. But it doesn't seem like the Chiefs are going to get rid of him. They didn't go for his fifth-year option, but he's still on the roster. And McKinnon still looks like the guy he was last year. There was some commentary early in training camp about Deneric Prince possibly making the roster, kind of like Pacheco, an undrafted free agent, rather than Pacheco was a seventh-round pick. But lately, it's been LaMichael Pirine who has surged ahead and maybe is going to get maybe the backup running back position, even maybe second position rather even third or fourth, with McKinnon as the third down back and maybe Edwards-Helaire as number 4, but and Deneric Prince is out.
Practice squad maybe, or
Practice squad, yeah, he was lined up maybe as a kick returner. That's always been really doomed. But Richie James has proven that he seems to be a pretty good returner as well. So I think that's surprising. Michael Pirine was on the Bengals with his cousin Samaje Perine last year, and then he went to the Chiefs practice squad at the end of the season, and he's still with the Chiefs. So I don't know. Did you see anything you thought was interesting out of the running backs?
Yeah, not so much. What? Yeah, McKinnon had that one really nice run. It was like nearly 20 yards, but that was there wasn't anything too exciting, I think, on the run. I mean, Bouchel's run was pretty nice. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah.
Where he had
His
a nice
touchdown
cut at the end.
Yeah.
To get into the end zone. That was pretty good.
Yeah, he was 10 for 10 with rushing touchdown. Actually, Blaine Gabbert. I had heard Blaine. Actually, I think Andrew was talking about he wasn't planning on playing Blaine Gabbert that game, but he decided to put him in anyway later, and he ended up having a perfect passer rating.
Yeah,
158.3, 2 touchdowns, 7 for 8. 150 yards passing or something like that. So it was
not too shabby.
Yeah. So you think, yeah. So it seems like the backup position is pretty good. We'll talk about all these backups and all the quarterbacks. In our next segment.
How about from the receiving core? How about Rashee Rice though? He was probably the big star of this preseason game. 8 catches, 96 yards.
Yeah, I think he had an early drop, but he did well after that.
He missed his first pass, and then he caught the last 8.
Yeah, Rice looks good. He's a bigger guy than the Chiefs have had at receiver for a while. I think Mahomes has compared him to Sammy Watkins when Watkins was healthy, so that could be pretty good. And I think, yeah, I'm looking forward to. It seems like Rice is farther along this year than Sky Moore was last year. Both second-round picks, but it seems like Rice is more polished at this time.
I mean, I know late in the game that was it Amir Smith-Marset? He had some great plays that and even one that was like called back, I think, too, that but he still had 4 catches, 92 yards, and a touchdown. Any chance he makes the team as a long shot?
Yeah, maybe he's the number 7 receiver. If there's a receiver that doesn't make the team, I'd kind of like to see Justin Watson not make it, because I think he was inconsistent last year. He doesn't offer a whole lot. He had a couple big catches, but he had a lot of drops. And I think I like to see Justin Ross, Smith-Marset, some of those guys. You see what Rice and Sky Moore and do as well. So Smith-Marset, he was a 5th-round draft pick. I didn't realize he was drafted.
Yeah,
he was a 5th-round draft pick by the Vikings in 2021.
Oh, okay.
So he's pretty recent. The Vikings got rid of him when they got Jalen Reagor, who was a kind of notorious first-round bust for the Philadelphia Eagles. But Reagor went to TCU, which is the same place that Shane Buechele played. Rashee Rice played for SMU across town. But yeah, the Reagor only had 8 catches for 104 yards last year for the Vikings, so he did not do a whole lot. But I guess Smith-Marset was seen as more expendable, and then but maybe the Chiefs have found somebody, because Mahomes can make players look good, and maybe the Chiefs backup quarterbacks can also make players look good. And maybe Smith-Marset says something has clicked, and he's figured something out. So maybe if he can't catch up on the Chiefs, maybe he can catch on to somebody else, and which I think is the next best thing for these guys. So at least for me, from as a fan of the Chiefs, I
Yeah,
would like it's sad sometimes seeing the Chiefs or your team cut some guy and they end up playing on another team, but I
yeah.
think you'd rather have that than picking up a lot of cast-offs from other teams to try to fill your roster.
Well, this could be. Yeah, it looked like he played. Smith Marset even played for the Bears last season too. So this is his third team in 3 years, and I didn't realize that either. That he had two other teams that he played for. Did you?
Yeah,
Was that?
he ended up he had like one catch I think for
Yeah, for the Bears.
Bears, and yeah, so he didn't play a whole lot, but he's on. Yeah, he's a fringe. I guess he's a fringe active roster guy, and maybe he's good on special teams and things like that. So that would be good to have. I think the Chiefs are. I'm excited to hear about. Excited to get the season started and see how the Chiefs are going to do. I'm looking forward to football already. I guess you probably are too. Should we? I guess do you want to talk about any other preseason games?
We
I
should
would
mention
we
the
did talk about
blanket bet though
our
too.
betting. Yeah, well, our bet that the Chiefs would win might
Yes.
won, but they covered rather than I thought the Cardinals would cover the 7.5 point spread,
Oh yes.
but that also they also went over, so I was 2 out of 3.
So you're 5 of 6 in
Yeah,
preseason Chiefs predictions.
yeah. How about the blanket over? How did that?
Blanket over. Yeah, we noticed that the over under numbers were all slightly higher than last week. We decided to go with the blanket over again on all 16 games. This week you would have gone 9 and 7. So you'd have been plus $200 on your $1,600 outlay, which isn't that's an okay gain. It's not great, but it's still a gain.
It's money, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Even if there had been, um, the juice having to be paid, you still would have made 100 and 130 bucks or something like that. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's yeah. So right. So do you want to try? Let's see what the blanket over does again for week 3 of the preseason. 'Cause it looks like the over under numbers are all low again,
Well, they're
and
about in line with last week's numbers. It's gonna be very close to what last week's like average over under number was.
yeah,
Um,
third preseason game is a little unpredictable because you don't like sometimes the starters don't play at all. But we've heard that Aaron Rodgers is going to play for the Jets for the first time in preseason in 5 years. He hadn't played in the preseason since 2018, so maybe the Jets have been doing pretty well in preseason. Maybe they can
mhm.
do it against the Giants for the Mayor's Trophy or whatever they might call the winner of the Giants Jets preseason.
I guess they didn't do too much in the last game. They lost to Tampa
Oh, they did.
in game, well, their second actual preseason game. But yeah, they lost 13-6 to Tampa.
Okay.
That's not so great. Their first game, they shut somebody out, didn't they?
They lost to the Browns in the Hall of Fame game.
Yeah, but that doesn't count, right?
Well, I don't know. And then they beat the Jets. They beat the Panthers 27-0.
Yeah, it was. I
And then they
remember
lost.
it was a big shutout. Yeah,
Yeah.
13-6 loss to Tampa is probably not a great sign if it's a regular season game. But in the preseason, does that mean anything at all?
Who knows? You'd like your team to score more points.
Yeah.
So the Jets offense is supposed to be very, very strong this year.
Prolific is the hope.
Yeah, but who knows? The one team that we mentioned that Rodgers is going to play perhaps for the first time since 2018. One team lost for the first time in several years in the preseason. That was the Baltimore Ravens. They lost on a last second field goal, I believe, to Washington. And their preseason win streak of 24 games has come to an end. Are you upset about their 29-28 loss to the Commanders? The Commanders were, I guess, jubilant on the field that they had won this preseason game. Do you think that they should be so excited about winning a preseason game?
I think the guys that would have been on the field would have been the players that may not make the roster. That may be the most exciting thing that happens to them this year for a lot of those
That's true. Yeah.
players, at least anyway. So celebrate when you can. I think that's the should be the motto, I think, right? So
Yeah, Irvin
uh,
Magic Johnson was happy about it. Did you know Magic Johnson is one of the new owners of the Commanders?
yeah, that seems pretty surprising, right?
I wasn't aware of Magic's ownership the Commanders, but anyway, he
Not the
was
match you would expect, I guess. Is that what you think of him as an LA guy, right? Why would he be involved in a DC
yeah.
thing?
Yeah, and he was from Michigan, I think. He played Michigan State. And so I don't yeah, it's I don't know. I guess he's got, he's got money and he probably likes sports and
Sure, yeah.
yeah, there's not a lot of NFL teams or professional sports teams that go on sale. So if you can latch on to any team, probably you're gonna try to do it. Yeah, I guess.
He is or was part of the Dodgers ownership group too, I think. So yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, I think you just try to get whatever.
whatever, yeah, is available to him, then he's going to take it.
Yeah, Magic he's got a lot of entrepreneurial types of things. He had expressed an interest in buying the Clippers. He yeah, he's yeah, he's let's see, he's a sports team owner. He joined as part of a bid for uh the Dodgers, and I guess he still is part owner of the Dodgers. He is also part owner of a minor league baseball team,
Hmm.
Dayton Dragons. He is also part owner of the Los Angeles Sparks. He is part owner of MLS Los Angeles FC. So he was also tried to be part of the group that pursued the Dolphins, Raiders, and Broncos. So I guess he's just trying to latch onto any ownership group he can find. So,
Yeah.
so he just wants to own a NFL franchise. Which, if you have a lot of money and you're Magic Johnson, I think that's
Go for it, yeah.
admirable
Yeah.
goal. Well, we have an admirable goal of trying to do 3 segments today.
Yeah, but I was gonna say, what are your bets for the upcoming Chiefs preseason game 3?
The Chiefs preseason game 3. They are playing the Cleveland Browns, and I think they're favored by 3.5 points.
I think it was one of the higher over/under numbers, 41.
41.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go.
Cleveland is favored by 3.5.
A Cleveland's favored by 3.5. Okay,
Ah,
that's surprising.
yes.
I guess they think
And,
Mahomes
and it's
probably
in
isn't.
Kansas City.
It's in Kansas City, I think, and really, it's been the backups that have been scoring a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Chiefs. It hasn't been the starters necessarily. So I think I'm going to say I'll say Chiefs at plus 3.5. We'll say Chiefs. We'll say they win and then win as well, and then let's go over. So let's just do what happened with Arizona. I don't know. It's preseason.
All Chiefs.
You might as well just bet on because there's no way to know what's going to happen. So
Yeah.
it's
No. Yeah. This is really, but you're 5 for 6 on your preseason predictions thus far around the Chiefs. So you may as well go for it, right?
Yeah, I'll predict the Chiefs win.
So the Chiefs win. That'd be the money line and cover
Money line and
because they're the
spread.
underdogs.
Money line and spread, and also over. We'll just say,
over,
I think both of the Chiefs preseason games so far would have gone over 41. So
there were a couple of very close over under hits and misses both. On the Thursday game was an under by 0.5 point in a game that ended in a tie, which is kind of weird anyway, right?
Yeah, you don't have the overtime.
On Sunday there was an under by 0.5 point. And then there was an over by a single point too in that on the Saturday games. So there were some really close ones.
It could have been 11-5 if it had broken exactly our way.
Yeah.
So I think over. Let's stick with the over and just hammer the over for the preseason, and then we'll see what happens with the regular season.
Yes. All right. So
Was
this
that
this will end our first segment, first of 3 segments.
first of 3 segments? We'll begin part 2 of our episode this week, and that will cover the AFC quarterbacks from the AFC West and the AFC South. And then part 3, we'll get into the quarterback outlook for the AFC North and the AFC East. We did the NFC last week. You can check if you haven't looked at our broadcast from last week. You can listen to that still. Parts 2 and 3 of our episodes last week were the NFC. Parts 2 and 3 of our episodes this week will be the AFC.